My name is Willy Bolander. I study influence, persuasion, and leadership in selling and sales management, and I teach people how to sell. In this podcast, we'll talk to some of the world's top sales leaders and see what we can learn from them. Welcome to the Sales Lab. Every year in November, Florida State University hosts a massive event in Orlando, Florida. For business students, this is a sales role play and case competition, an opportunity to compete and get exposed to job opportunities with some of the world's best sales organizations. For companies, this is an unbelievable recruitment opportunity, bringing several hundred of the nation's best students, all already interested in starting their careers in sales, into one location for you to meet. So if you're a student looking to differentiate yourself and secure your dream job in sales, a marketing or sales professor looking to show off your students and connect them with great opportunities, or a sales manager or recruiter looking to acquire top sales talent, come learn more about the International Collegiate Sales Competition at www.icsc-fsu.com. That's www.icsc-fsu.com. All right, welcome to part 3 of our conversation with Adam Rubenstein. This is the finale of our conversations. We're going to talk about the importance of solving a problem. If you're in sales, if you're in business, if you're an entrepreneur, well, you should start with a purpose. And often that purpose is, what problem are you going to solve? We also fire off some rapid fire questions to them, ask them to define selling, his best day in sales, his worst day in sales, and of course, some book recommendations. Hope you get something out of it. Thanks. And you look at these very successful millionaire, billionaire, celebrity level entrepreneurs, and they say, oh, I sold my business. I'm going to retire. And they managed to stay retired for all of about 18 to 24 months because, as you said, it's the journey, not just the destination, right? Okay, cool. Right. I've got a bunch of resources. I can do whatever I want. Well, what I want in sort of a deep way is to contribute, to add value, to solve problems. Yeah, it's better to do it with filet on the menu for dinner and with the opportunity to take a sweet vacation in a few months. But these people don't stay retired. And even if they don't start another for-profit venture, they start foundations, they volunteer, they do all sorts of things. And I think there's such a big lesson in that, especially thinking about my students who are saying, oh, I just want to have lots of money. And not that all of them are thinking like that, but some of them do. It's like, well, okay, but cool, me too. But for what? What are you going to do when you get there? And why are you going to endure the hardships that are going to come along the way? Because they will. And if you don't have that purpose, it's going to be real easy just to say, nah, I'm out. I'm going to go take that salaried gig I gave up on a few years ago.
Well, maybe you just identified it. It's the desire to contribute. That is what makes the best entrepreneur, or makes an entrepreneur. Right. I mean, going into it, I always know you cannot go into it with the idea that you're going to make money. I mean, it's, I think, a poor attitude. You go in with, I'm going to contribute to the, sales tech stack. I'm going to solve a big problem and hopefully I'll make some money. I mean, that would be nice, but I know that will follow, but I want to contribute. And for me, it's contributing in this way, but I know people that contribute in, charities and nonprofits, and they're doing all sorts of wonderful things for the world. And they're no less entrepreneurial. They're just, because it's a not-for-profit, it doesn't seem to fall in the entrepreneurial basket. I'm kind of thinking out loud, spitballing that maybe that you've just identified what separates the successful entrepreneur is the willingness to contribute is what makes the really successful ones, the desire to contribute, not just give up or take a job. And there's also maybe a little bit of fear. The people who are willing to contribute, maybe they're more risk takers. I know I'm a risk taker. That's in my nature. And I think the combination of desire to solve a problem, to willing to contribute, and the willingness to fail, I'm okay with all that.
Yeah, we talk a lot about failure in my sales management class. I've been accused by students in the past of being pessimistic, whatever, trying to make them jaded or something. Well, you think about it like a fighter, you're going to learn how to throw a punch, but if you're going to be any good, you're going to learn to take a punch. You're going to learn to think through a little bit of pain and strategize, even though, you're not really sure what's happening and you're disoriented. And this idea, and I think maybe I mentioned it to you the other day, this quote that a lot of people I love and respect have told me in the past, and I think it's completely wrong, that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. Say, oh man, stop telling kids that, because some of them believe it. And then some of them have a bad day and think that they have completely miscalculated the direction their life is supposed to take because, oh man, if it feels like work, then it's not supposed to feel like work. No, if,
Right.
turns out if you're a surgeon, healing people, you have some great days. Maybe it doesn't feel like work when you've solved all these medical problems, but then some days that other thing happens, and I bet it feels like work. I bet you go home thinking a lot of negative thoughts, and you have to. If you're surprised by that, you're not going to be able to rally. You're not going to be able to come back from that. So, yeah, we talk a lot about that in sales, and certainly I think that's even more prevalent in entrepreneurship, given that it's your money and it's actually your stuff that's on the line, not just I'm going to have to quit and find something else. It's like, oh, I might lose my investment.
Right. And well, your point that it's work and that there is a lot of failure, especially in sales. But I think the secret is to make sure that every failure there's a learning. If you lose a deal, and you're going to lose a lot of deals. Now, I used to joke, I've sold $1 billion, but I lost $2 billion in deals. And I think that'd be a pretty good ratio. It's not that good, probably. But, the worst days in your life are the ones where you lose the deal. And if you just say, okay, I lost it and I'm terrible and that's not acceptable, you got to figure out why you lost it. Because if you can't improve, you're going to always your record's not going to improve. So you've got to figure out why you failed or why you made a mistake, learn from that mistake. And I think I get a sense of comfort when you leave, you lost the big deal, you thought you had it, you lose it, and you go home thinking bad thoughts. And then I say, well, no, I learned it, so something from it, so I'm not going to make that mistake again, and I move on. But I think it is to tell people that they should love their work every day. That's a bad sentiment for people to follow.
Bad expectation.
Yeah.
Well, let's do this, Adam. I don't want to take up too much of your afternoon. Let me pick we'll do kind of a rapid fire question thing to close out.
Okay.
Just pick a couple off of that list I sent you that I don't think we've touched any of the questions on anyway. How do you define selling? I think this is always kind of a fun one.
Persuading people to do something that is in their best interest.
Okay. Do you feel like that's condescending in any way, that people are running around not doing what's in their best interest?
I say that because I'm sure there are people who are persuading them to do bad things. And I in my gut, it's like when I have a conversation about sales, I always start it with, let's explore whether what we're doing can help you. And if it can't, let's shake hands, walk away friends. But I do not want to impose my will to the detriment of the customer. That's just unacceptable. So that's why I'm trying to persuade someone to do what is in their best interest. They don't always know what's in their best interest, so I have to sometimes be the judge. But I do not want to persuade them to do what's not in their best interest. That would be just evil. And that's, I don't want to do that.
For sure. Yeah, no, that was kind of a loaded question because I would say, we are constantly not doing what's in our best interest, right? I mean, look at retirement savings, look at insurance, look at all of these areas where, if we were half as rational as economists like to imagine we are, we would be doing things much different.
Right.
Let's see here. How about your best day in sales?
My best day in sales is probably almost every day when I close a deal. There is no one best day. I would say that the day that we sell the companies, I've sold the past 3, and that day when you receive the check, that's a very satisfying day because in essence, we sell the product and then we ultimately sell the business. That's very satisfying. I get excited. Someone says, send me the contract, and, there's nothing better there. It's like golf, right? In golf, I asked you this, whether you play golf. You said you're not.
No.
But for those of us who play golf poorly, I can have a terrible day, but then on the 15th hole, I hit one great shot, and it's like, this is the greatest game in the world. I can't wait till next week. Well, I feel like sales is the same way. You get beat down, no, and then you close one deal. It's like, this is the greatest job in the world. I love it. It's that same excitement and passion, and it feels so good that I'm going to go and struggle and get 50 no's to get to that one yes, and it's all going to be worthwhile. So I have no real one best day that I can recall.
All right, worst day in sales.
Well, likewise, every time. Well, I've had a couple big deals. I was selling the phone cards, and thought we were going to sell. There was a chain called Albertsons, and I thought we had it. And all my conversations led me to believe we had it, and it was going great. And then one day I get the call and say, well, we're going with one of your competitors. And, it's like, oh my gosh, I spent like 6 months chasing this deal, doing all sorts of crazy things and, putting my family's their lives in not jeopardy, but not going to events that I should have because I had to do work, and then you lose it. That's a very sad, disappointing moment. And there's been a few of those really big deals where all signs were I was going to win the deal, and then you lose it, and that feels terrible. Yeah. Now I do a lot of, at the time, used to do a lot of what I called sales forensics. When I lost the big deal, I'd call and I'd say, look, I spent a lot of time, invested a lot of energy. Could you do me the favor of sharing with me what went right, what went wrong, so I could learn from this? And every time, it always starts out, we're kind of 50-50 right there, splitting, assuming it's weighted, like you've got 50% of the points and they have 50% of the points in this kind of measurement of who we're going to go with. And then we did something a little not as well. We didn't respond as quickly, and they did something a little better. And in the end, it was 47-53, and they won the deal. And the frustration is deals are not won by massive amounts. It's just on the edge. You win or lose a deal, and if you just known or had a little more insight, maybe you wouldn't have made that mistake. You're certainly not going to make it again. And that's the difference between winning and losing. It's not gigantic differences in the way you'd perform. It's just little subtle nuance, knowing what the buyer really cares about, or knowing what the CEO said on an earlier call, and writing a proposal to address their issues more thoughtfully. You win the business rather than lose it.
All right, two more.
Okay.
What's something you've learned about sales or sales management this past year?
The fact that we're not in the office. We've done everything we can to mitigate the lack of proximity, but so much information is transmitted via water cooler, right? That just passing someone in the hallway or overhearing people, you can't share ideas, you can't listen to the colleague next to you on the phone. And so a lot of that information is lost. And we have to figure out ways to bring it back, to capture that, and it's hard. And we're doing the best we can with tools like Zoom, and I have stand-ups every morning and every afternoon with my teams to do our best to build that camaraderie and share that information that otherwise is not getting shared.
What are some books that you think all entrepreneurs or sales professionals should have on their desk, and why?
So I know that one of my favorites is Hope is Not a Strategy.
Yep.
And I used to give that to every new sales hire. The other one I love is The 7 Secrets of Persuasion. And I'm a big believer in that neurolinguistic programming, understanding human behavior well enough to say the right things, do the right things that will lead to a better outcome. And then I loved Neil Rackham's Spin Selling.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's a great book. It's a great foundation for understanding how to, get to, identify a problem, identify the cost of that problem, and figure out how to solve that problem and how it's going to help the sales, the buyer. I think that you can't follow that formula directly. You have to kind of smooth out the rough edges. I always joke that when you learn to dribble a basketball, it's like you take the ball and you bounce it in this very mechanical way, which is how we teach people to do things. But if you ever watch LeBron James or Dwayne Wade on the court, that's not how they're dribbling the ball. Right. So you read these books, you get the foundation pieces, but then you kind of have to blend them into the way you talk and the way you think so that they don't come out as rough and kind of clumsy. And what do you think the cost to you is going to be? It comes across as so unauthentic, contrived, right? That doesn't sound good. But those are three of my favorite books on selling, though there are so many. I mean, I've got like you probably have hundreds of them. There are hundreds of them. And what I tell people is read them, and if you get one or two nuggets, right, one or two things that you can use tomorrow to help you do a better job. They may not be things you didn't know. You may have known them, but you've forgotten them. That's all it takes. They're not so much learning. I used to have a book club. We'd read every Friday morning. I'd hand out a book, and every Friday morning we'd meet to discuss a couple chapters. And it wasn't that I thought that they're all of a sudden learning all these new things about sales, but it was kind of like to get the energy going, to keep them thinking about sales and the process and improvement, because they need to always be trying to get better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I start, whether with students or, with a corporate training environment, I always start with spin selling, and it is the most popular. It is arguably maybe the most impactful, but I would say, and I think I could defend this position, that it's not the most precise. It's not the most comprehensive. And if that's how you're defining best, then it's not the best. But what it does do that a lot of these other methods don't do is that it spells spin. And it's really, really easy to remember. And you can kind of tell somebody about it in 15, 20 minutes and do a little practice drill on it. And they'll be able to execute it maybe a little clumsily, but they'll kind of be able to do it that afternoon. Or, after 20 minutes of learning about it. You take some of these thicker books that are maybe more complete. Nobody's remembering them. They're, you want me to remember 64 steps in your process of selling, and I'm, come on, I can't remember a phone number anymore. How am I going to remember all that? Well, I can remember spin.
I love it. It's a short book, relatively so, and it's pithy, and I think it's to your point. That's the other thing. I like books that I want to know where the rubber meets the road, and can I act on it? Is it actionable information? Can I read it and then do something with it? And a lot of the books there seems to be a lot of theory, and I just want to sell. I just want to get on the phone and sell a little better and make the conversation go a little better. And I think Neil Rackham does a great job of that. And there's a few other books like that I can't necessarily remember, but there's lots of good books on the topic, and they're all fairly simple. I always loved also the Challenger sale.
Yeah.
So because I thought it was interesting and creative, and I used that technique where I would say something that challenged the buyer's beliefs, and often was really fantastic because all of a sudden they realized that the way they were thinking about the world and the way they were thinking about their problem may not be the world and the problem, that they didn't have the right viewpoint. And I'd show them some data about how they were. I wasn't mean about it, but I give them a story about a situation, say, what do you think happened in this situation? They tell me what they expected to happen. I'd say, well, in fact, the opposite happened. And they're like, what? No way. And I say, no way. That's the world we live in. And this is the problem we solve. And that surprise really changed the way they think.
Absolutely. That's it for this interview. I hope you got something valuable out of it. Of course, if you did, be sure to subscribe and rate this podcast on whatever app you use to listen. Also, share this with your colleagues and friends, and let's continue to have a deeper discussion on all things related to selling and sales leadership. See you next time in the Sales Lab.